Hello and welcome to another video. This one is going to live halfway between a comparison and educational. All three of these balls are symmetric pearls with some variance or difference in their cores, but while the Knight and Fate have the REX cover formula, the Phaze 5 is R2S. The problem is that people are going to look at the three of them and just see pearl, 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 and even worse, because of the abundance of friction on house shots, the Phaze 5 looks the strongest just because it's sharper on friction than the other two. So I went out and got footage for all three on a heavier volume sport pattern to show the difference in actual traction of what that looks like. We're going to do a short setup on the house shot, starting with the Phaze 5. It's too responsive for me to throw from straighter, so I had to move in away from the friction. Most people would look at this ball and say it hooks a ton. I'm in, swinging it quite a bit, it's hitting the back end and pulling up just fine. There's always plenty of free quote-unquote hook on house shots though, so weaker and more responsive balls are going to look like monsters because they're designed for drier lanes. They're designed to glide more on the oil so that you still have good ball reaction when there isn't much oil to work with. This means that they need dry boards to be able to move though. Once you raise the amount of oil, they're going to be more significantly affected. Looking at the Fate, it's decidedly smoother. I can play the same angles, though, but visually on the house pattern, it looks weaker than the Phaze 5. Throwing it, I can feel the extra stability from the Fate, though. I can feel the extra traction and blend. The Phaze 5 wanted to really boom on the dry, but is plenty easy down the lane in the oil, and the Fate just does what it does no matter where I throw it. You can see it if you're watching closely for it, but honestly, it's a lot easier to feel when throwing the balls rather than watching on the screen. Stronger balls are usually smoother because they maintain a more consistent relationship with the lane. They don't require as much drive for hook because they create their own friction through the oil rather than just responding to the friction that's available. Moving along to the Knight, it's got a weaker core than the Fate, but that actually adds to the shape because it's not moving as soon, so it has more left in the tank for a bigger back-end move. It's pretty close to the Phaze 5 visually. I think the Knight is a little earlier, rounder, and slower, but again, visually, it looks like it's at least equal, if not a little step down from the Phaze 5. The Knight is more dynamic than the Fate, but that's not terribly surprising. The Fate revs faster, starts rolling sooner, so it's going to be more blendy. And this isn't exactly what's happening, but the easiest way to explain it is that it's using more energy to hook earlier, the Fate is, so it has less available to use for punch on the back end. The major issue is that people think that's a bad thing. They like visual shape, and while it's impressive and appealing at surface value, too much skid and too much shape can make for inconsistent reaction that's hard to control. Now we're going to move to the sport pattern with the Phaze 5. 28.4 mils, 42 feet, oil out near the gutter, so no free hook. Left of 5 or 6 is out of bounds. First couple balls instantly show that there's no more free friction outside and no miss room inside. All of a sudden we see a change. The Phaze 5 becomes quite sensitive. I have a much smaller window, zero room for error. If the shot isn't near perfect, it's not going to react well. You might say, well, obviously it's shiny, it's just going to skid, it needs surface, this is unfair. But just hold on, this helps prove the point. To get it to work out, I have to move further inside where it's flatter and not mess with the oil out near the gutter. This gives me more stability, and if I get it out even a pinch too far, it's just not going to get back. I have to slow my speed down and roll it more to control the shape better, and to do that, I have to add a little angle. This is something the pros will do when their reaction is touchy from straighter. They'll move in a bit deeper so that they can slow it down and control the roll more. You can see that all the reaction and forgiveness we had on the house shot is gone. Once we get in here a bit further, now I've moved too far and it just can't handle the volume from these angles. It's definitely not enough cover, and while you can see it's still generally trying to react well, it just doesn't get the traction necessary to blend the lane and be more stable. Let's move to the Fate next, where it looked weaker than the Phaze 5 on the house pattern. It looks no different whatsoever on all the extra volume and extra length on this pattern. Matter of fact, it actually looks stronger and more dynamic on this pattern than it did on the house shot. The cover formula is much stronger, so despite having a weaker core, and also still being shiny, the strength of the cover formula is giving it the dig. On more friction on the house shot, it was definitely getting more traction and earlier traction than it looked like, which was slowing down the back end move and making it blend more. With more volume up front to help it with length, now it has more energy further down the lane to boom when it hits the friction. Despite also being shiny, again, it has no trouble whatsoever getting traction and producing some impressive ball motion. It looks amazing, actually. So while the Phaze 5 would definitely need the shine taken off to be more effective on the fresh, I'm not sure I'd touch the Fate. Finally, the Night Road, and once again, there's no difference in ball reaction from the house pattern to the sport pattern, or if anything, it also looks a little more dynamic like the Fate. I don't think people realize how strong a lot of these covers actually are. A lot of these really strong cover balls tend to be a lot smoother in league and leads to the why does my low end ball outhook my high end ball type situations, because people just don't understand what hook actually is. Hook isn't back end, it's actual traction through oil. The Phaze 5 doesn't hook, it responds. If the friction is there, it's amazing. If not, it has trouble keeping up. However, the Fate and Night are chewing and getting work done without any issue, even with the polish and weaker cores than the P5, much weaker in the case of the Night. You'll notice too that despite all three being quote-unquote pearls, the Phaze 5 acts like a stereotypical pearl, the Fate acts like a stereotypical hybrid, and the Night acts like a stereotypical solid. So I think that we need to all let the cover designator thing go too. Bowling tech has evolved beyond these older ideas. Hopefully this has helped you understand cover stock formulas a little better and why friction response or sharpness doesn't equal hook, and why just saying pearl doesn't describe a ball reaction. All these are available on Bowler's Mart to pick up, links in the description below. Also remember to check out my membership options. Thanks of course to my outstanding members. Thank you for watching, and may the strikes be with you.